All right, so one of my favorite guys to talk to on this podcast, we always appreciate his time. He's got great insight, and that is Joe Henricksen, City Suburban Hoops Report and Chicago Sun-Times contributor. Follow him on Twitter at Joe Hoops Report. Well, Joe, we're kind of back to focus on some prep basketball recruiting. I made that point on this podcast a little bit. It's nice to see some preps get some shine in this era of the transfer portal getting most of the focus.
Yeah, and also for Illinois specifically, because you're talking about a program, and not to the fault of their own, because there have not been a ton of high major prospects of late in Illinois, and here they are, got on board with a top ranked prospect early on, secured him, and it's played out perfectly for them. They've got a relationship that's not even a question of. Basketball is different than football. Football, there's always that concern of decommitments and taking other visits, and basketball is not that way. But Morez just continues to climb. Morez Johnson is without question the top prospect in Illinois from the Chicago area here, and boom, they locked him up early, and he's flourishing. He's shining, and Illinois fans, the coaching staff, anybody involved in Illinois recruiting, which is a second sport for fans, has got to be ecstatic because I just think Morez is everything to do with winning. He is about all the right things. I know it keeps being said over and over again, but it's the one attribute I don't think you can talk enough about because it's what makes programs tick. It makes what programs win. And he brings all of those intangibles. Does he have things to work on? Yes, but he's physically ready from day one. I can't even imagine what he's going to be like with Fletch and what college strength and conditioning program is going to do for him. But it's what's in his head. What's in his head is, just he wants to do all the things others don't want to do. And you get a big man that are already hard to come by in this day and age. It's just a huge win for Illinois and a boon for, this recruiting class, whatever it ends up being.
Heck, it was almost 2 years ago, Joe, that he committed. And we asked you on this podcast what you thought of him, and you were a fan of him then. And he's kind of a throwback. It kind of reminds me like the Tracy Abrams days of kids committing this early. It's pretty big rarity nowadays. But what kind of development have you seen from him during the last year, particularly what's been on display in the national stage the last couple of weeks with the NBA PA Top 100 camp and then Peach Jam?
I think it's a combination of assertiveness and confidence, and he was always a confident player because he was a high-profile kid early on. But it's that assertiveness and the production going from here and there to, okay, I'm doing this every single day in terms of numbers, the effort, the energy, but figuring it out, how to do it, how to get it done. I think he's matured in that way, and utilizing his strengths. High school players have a tough time sometimes understanding them true selves of who they are as a player and what is going to lead to production. Morez doesn't try to do too much, and I think that I think he was doing that early in his career, trying to do a little bit too much out of his comfort zone, trying to be a little too perimeter oriented. I think he went to use that blue collar approach to his benefit, and that's why he's progressed in terms of productivity. Does he have room to grow as a player? Yeah. All high school players do. Is he a pretty unpolished offensive player right now? Yes. But there's things that he can do without having that ideal skill set to still produce. And that is get on the glass, loose balls, keep balls alive, run in transition, finish, all these things that he can do with his physical attributes and strengths. He's doing it at a high level right now.
Yeah, Joe, and it's just all that stuff seems to translate to the college game and the college role that he will have. Like if he reminds me a little bit of Ty Rodgers. If you rebound, defend, you focus on those
very similar.
Things, yeah, you're going to find a way to get on the court. But we do think, at least most people I talk to think there's another level he can get to. So for his development, what do you think is the key for Illinois once he gets here to develop him and to complement him on the court?
Well, the complement part is going to be important with what pieces you put around him inside the 4 and the 5 and interchangeable. Ideally, what you'd love for Morez to be able to do is be that interchangeable 4-5, and he's got to be more of that 4. I just think the decision making with the ball in his hands, that coupled with just being able to stick that little jump, it's not broke. That jumper has ways to go. But if he can showcase a little bit of that from the skill area, that's going to raise his level, because he's not the somewhat of an issue would be, he's not 6'10", 6'11". He's 6'8", 6'8 and a half. And he is more 5 to me right now than 4. Some probably will disagree with me on that, but that's just how I see it. But again, we can get back to being that interchangeable big man piece. I think that's going to be a huge advantage for him and any coaching staff that can utilize him in that way.
He's one of the few kids who's sticking around in state here, Joe.
Yes.
He goes from St. Rita to Thornton, going to play with Ty Streets, who obviously is coached with Mean Streets at Thornton. What do you expect out of him, or what do you want to see out of him as a senior?
Well, kudos for Morez. I mean, he if you ever talk to him, he's a, everybody is said a lot, the cliche, great kid. Man, he is. I mean, besides being about the right things, just the way he articulates things to you and what is important to him stood out to me, even during that whole, everybody gets uptight about all the transfers in high school basketball now. They forced this kid's hand. I mean, the program was in shambles. The coach left. I mean, it was just a bad situation at St. Rita. But to his credit, he found the importance of what it means to stay home, to play and be around family and friends. And that's not the mindset of top flight players around the country, and even in the state, as we've seen. There is something of value to him to do that here. So, Thornton is a little bit of a rebuild. They've added 2 other transfers. So, I have an event in January when sides collide. Thornton will be in it, and I'm excited because I think they're going to be, obviously with Morez, but they could be a potential top 10 team from a team that really wasn't very good, very uncharacteristic like. But Morez is just what he is. He's going to be a Mr. Basketball front runner. And it's going to be interesting to see how he can put that team on his back, because there were so many pieces at St. Rita, even though he was the key figure at St. Rita with James Brown and Noyes Indecitus and all these high majors, but he's kind of the sole guy at Thornton now. So it'll be interesting to see just kind of how he handles that role as a senior.